Horizon Thunder Sphere! Hey, hello everybody. How is everybody doing? Hopefully you're doing well. I am very, very pleased to see we got some people in here already, which is great. And I want to say thank you already to Tyson for already giving us that sick little super chat. So thank you very much, sir. You're much appreciated. Yeah, we're starting off with a little Horizon Thunder Sphere action, which was an audio clip that I made after one of our streams where apparently I didn't say Horizon Thunder Sphere awesome enough. So, you know, we had to get that out of the way for sure. Get a little bit more lo-fi going here. Self-confessed cynic. Thank you very much for the thumbnail. Yeah, well, we had a little extra time last night, so we were, we had some fun. You know, I thought, okay, Primal, who better than Radagast the Brown? So if you figured out that was Radagast the Brown, congratulations, you were correct. It was Radagast the Brown. So a little bit of action in here. So yeah, so we got a couple different changes here for this version. Someone, I think self-confessed cynic actually, who is of course a big time supporter of the Nice Last Call Patreon, suggested that we just do all the level 1s first because there's a lot of duplicates, and so we can maybe get through these a little bit quicker. And yes, London Matthews says the bird poop hair gave it away. That is correct. So yeah, we have 19 primal spells here on the level 1 spell list that we have not yet covered in our arcane spell list. So the way that we're going to kind of do these is we're going to take a look at the existing tiers of our spells. So we have what we did from our arcane list already locked down. I've deleted all of the spells that were not part of the Primal Tradition, and we are going to take a look at what we currently have, S through F, and then also take a look what's in the wand case and the scroll case, and decide if we need to make any changes. Now, I think you're going to see some changes between the traditions because there are things to consider. And that's part of the reason that makes some of this hard. Right now, there are 2 classes in the game that can cast primal spells. And that is, of course, the Druid. And the Druid is a, 8 hit point base class with medium armor proficiency. They start with shield block feat. So that's a bit of a big difference. And then the other one is the Sorcerer, who, of course, is a cloth casting or a cloth wearing class with 6 hit points per level. So there is something to be said about making that comparison between those two. So those are kind of 2 very different characters. So even if you think, can the witch can too? Okay. For some odd reason, I thought the witch was just arcane and occult. But all right. Well, we apparently have a bunch of them that can do primal. Okay, so that's actually news to me. I did not know that I knew the witch could do different types. I didn't know that they could do that as well. So yeah, witch and summoner. Summoner is weird. So here's the problem that I have with the primal spell list. Is it has, we can see here in our arcane list, in our spell tradition list, it has some of the best spells actually from the arcane list. Now, of course, one of the things that you have to remember about Pathfinder 2nd edition is that the way they kind of describe these traditions, arcane, divine, primal, occult, is sort of tapping into different elements of the what makes up the universe, right? And primal and arcane sort of overlap in the realm of matter. So both of these tend to deal with all the spells that basically make fire, create conjurations, that type of stuff tends to be kind of in the overlap between them. And that's a good thing, right? Because some of the best spells that we had in our game from our early, arcane list, Horizon Thundersphere, Burning Hands, Grease, Gust of Wind, Shocking Grasp, Shockwave. These are all primal spells too. And so, as a primal caster, you get a lot of the same blasting power that a arcane caster would get. Now, what do you lose? Well, if you look here, we lost a lot of the weird stuff. We lost like Rope Trick, and we lost, Friend Fetch, some of the weird manipulation type things, and we definitely lost all of
$10. What
the
I like
illusions.
best about your thumbnail is that you were covered in poop, which makes sense, because you were diving deep into a huge load of poop.
That is correct. So Galarian in Depth says that there are 4 essences. There's mind, matter, life, spirit. And I really wish they had kind of leaned into this a bit more. I think this is a really, really cool concept. And so, I definitely enjoy sort of thinking about the game from these sort of overlapping areas. And so, Arcane is mind and matter. And that's why you get those illusion spells. You get those sort of metaphysical construct type spells. That's sort of from that mind component. And then the matter is your stuff that you're kind of conjuring, your fire, your wind, your water, your elemental stuff, energy. But of course, because we are dealing with primal, we also tap into life. And if you kind of look here at the top of our tier list, you can see the new spells that we're going to be adding for primal. And, you can see here that we have some spells that kind of fall into what I would call the traditional druidic type spells. I definitely, So William Brandis says that Secrets of Magic did a good job diving into the essences. It did. It really did do a good job, and I thought it really defined it well. And I think it'd be cooler if they had sort of stuck to that a little bit more. What's the word I want to say? A little bit more fervently. Part of the problem with what they tried to do in Pathfinder 2, and I say this because I'm very familiar with the Primal list, because of course Burlington Van Veppen, the gnome sorcerer played by the Knight's own Matt Holloway, is a elemental sorcerer with the fire elemental subtype, which is a primal spell list. So our main sorcerer, blaster sorcerer, and the elemental sorcerer gets a bunch of bonus damage, is using the primal list. And that's great, and that's cool because it leans into those cool blasting elements. It just doesn't always seem really appropriate or cool when he could also potentially, summon a plant or an animal, or do something that's clearly very druidic. And, one of the things that they did in Pathfinder 2, the jury's still out on this, is instead of making a unique spell list for each class, which they used to do in Pathfinder 1, the wizard and the sorcerer shared the same spell list, but the cleric had their own spell list, and the druid had their own spell list. But then whenever they came out with a new class, that class needed essentially its own spell list, and it would just sort of pull from various sources throughout the game. And that meant that technically, if spells came out in a later supplement, you had to include pages which said, okay, these new spells, do they go to the witch? Do they go to the oracle? Do they go to the cleric? Do they go to the druid? Do they go to the magus? Do they go to the wizard? Etc., etc. So they really tried to simplify this by just breaking it down into the 4 traditions. And of course, they've kind of added a sub. So Ryan asked, what about the elementalist archetype? Yeah, so they added kind of this 5th tradition as sort of to focus that even in further. But at least in the core basis of the game, you only had these 4 traditions. And that meant that when a new class comes out, you can just say, this class uses the primal tradition. And then you don't have to create a custom class spell list for the class. And more importantly, you don't have to go and do all the work of trying to retrofit any new spell into prior existing classes. All you have to say is this new spell that we released is part of the Primal Tradition, and then sort of through the transitive property, it ends up getting stuck into the existing previous classes, which I like. So I do like that, but it sometimes creates these weird situations where you end up with a tradition that feels, you know, a little inappropriate for the character that you're playing, and that can be wonky at times. All right, well, let's see here. The fifth element, yes. Summon Captain Planet. Flame Loud says, I find it odd the Elementalist archetype lacks the lightning cantrip. Well, you know, it's just way too good. I agree that Electric Arc is like it's like one of the most elemental type spells in the game. Why wouldn't it be in there? So definitely a cool thing here. So, hey, thank you, Vin, for the tip. That is a good point. Definitely something. Hey, so you know, while you see Vin over there tipping, I do want to remind everybody we've got super chats, of course, available through YouTube. I'm still looking into creating YouTube creator accounts. I'd rather you just join our Discord because by joining our Patreon, because basically that way you get to chat with us and hang out with us if you're not already doing that. So, you know, the lowest tier is just $3 a month, and you know, gets you in there and gets you into the conversation, gets you into the community games. So it's a lot of fun there. But YouTube does have these creator accounts, which you can sign up for, and it'll give you all sorts of cool emojis and stuff like that. So we're still working on that. But you can also super chat, which is super, super appreciated. But also in the link below, in the doobly-doo thing down below, you'll see a link to our Stream Elements tips page. And that just goes directly to us. It doesn't go through YouTube. So we kind of basically get most of that money right away. And YouTube doesn't take a chunk out of it. So just be aware that that tip is in the description and the link below. So something to consider. Yes, Damien, thank you. Lance Quagmire says it's called the description. Yeah, all right, fine. I like calling it, you know, everyone goes, oh, Matt Colville calls it the doobly-doo. Like, Casey Neistat called it a doobly-doo, and that's actually where it came from. So don't give the credit to Matt Colville. I like Matt Colville, but he didn't do everything. All right. Well, I think that's about everything. I do want to just quickly shout out our patrons. Again, we're pretty transparent here at Night's the Last Call. You know, the Self-Confessed Cynic says, Stream Element tips aren't playing audio, ha ha ha. I think, I believe that it's because I changed the threshold for text-to-speech to like maybe $2 or $3 or something like that, because that way, I think I was messing around with it, and I don't think I changed it back yet. I did get rid of the $0 tip option, though, so thank you for making me aware of that. But yes, look, tip however you want. Go to Stream Elements in the link below. Use a super chat. I'm super appreciative in any case. What I was trying to say was, you know, unlike a lot of other YouTube channels, you know, there's a bunch of us. There's 5 of us, and we try to get together. We try to have these group conversations. You know, COVID is, of course, kicking our ass right now, but and we, of course, get together and play. And, you know, we're all with families and children and stuff like that. So it's not really feasible for us to just kind of set up in someone's house and leave a permanent setup. And if you've watched our APs or you watched our videos, you know we have like 7 or 8 cameras. It's a pretty sizable setup. So we rent a studio. It's just an office suite, and it costs us with, you know, Adobe subscriptions and SoundCloud subscriptions and all this other stuff. You know, we're paying close to around $1,000 a month to run this channel. But thanks to incredible generosity of our amazing Patreon, and which, you know, both in terms of their monthly subscriptions as well as, folks who are chipping us here in the chat over the last couple weeks, now that we've been doing this live stream thing. We are basically
Combat Medic
in the black.
$20 for the brews.
There we go. Thank you for the brews. Appreciated. We actually were talking about, we've got some beers still up in the fridge at the at the studio, and we're gonna have to go up there and get them and distribute them to everybody, because in case you hadn't heard, we are going to, at least for a little while, be doing our APs virtually. It's not ideal. That's not what we want to do. Heck, I just got done telling you that we have a $1,000 a month studio that we're paying for, with a custom built gaming table that I built, along with, thousands of dollars of camera equipment and audio equipment, and lighting equipment. It's probably more like $10,000, tens of thousands of dollars. Bob said he already grabbed the beers. All right. Great job, Bob. And so, yeah, I think that
Tyson Evans tipped $10. Try Sierra Nevada and tell me what you think. Using this stream elements for the first time.
Thank you very much, Tyson. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. And definitely looking forward to trying out a variety of brews. The Discord has given us more brews to check out than I think we could possibly ever get to. So yeah, where was I going with this? You guys got me all messed up. Oh, right. Yeah. We're in the black. We made like an actual little bit of money. Now, of course, there's 5 of us and we're like $30,000 in the hole. And so, we do have, a while to climb back out, but it's cool. It's good to be appreciated. It's cool to, be part of this community. I know that we don't always say the most, popular opinions, but, we try to get there. Bob, I am going to make you a moderator. So Bob, if you see anything that needs to be removed from the chat, please feel free to take care of it. Thank you, Bob. William Brandis. There's so much text here, it doesn't even fit on the screen. Can you fireball trees? 2 hours of tree puns. Matt Mercer's amazing hair. Clocks, new meme channel. Witcher 2. Is Derek's layout too busy? Yeah, maybe. We got a lot of information here. I mean, if you want, we can just go to this. This is there are more just casual, that are just chatting. We're just getting to know each other. We're just seeing each other and seeing what's going on.
Anonymous tipped $30, 0.1% less in the hole now.
Thank you, Anonymous. That is very, very generous of you and very much appreciative. Yes, every little bit counts. And, again, we're not doing this to make, a bajillion, quadrillion dollars. Number one, I wouldn't be doing RPGs. I would be talking about woodworking and fine furniture making. DIY sites have blown up. I could just be vlogging. I could just be talking about political commentary. But then even within the RPG space, I would be doing a lot more 5th edition stuff, which isn't to say I don't want to do 5th edition stuff. I'm actually running a 5th edition campaign right now on top of everything else I do. But right now, Pathfinder 2 is sort of where a lot of my interest lies. And, well, I have a lot of interests. I have a lot of games. In fact, if you look kind of behind me, camera right, you can see a bunch of my 4th edition D&D books. And recently I've decided I lost a lot of my books over the years, and I've decided to go out to eBay and try to track down the, 15 or so volumes I have that are missing and or lost. So, I'm passionate about gaming in general. So I pretty much like every game. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, actually, Bob said they were from Vlax. So our next round of beers is actually bought for us from a patron who shipped it to us, which is pretty awesome. So it's going to be a lot of fun once we get that set up. Yep. Got to spend money to make money. Yeah. And again, we had some unique advantages here. I had a photography business, so I already had a good chunk of equipment set up. I didn't really have any of this audio equipment, but I had a lot of lights and I had a lot of cameras. But it definitely comes up. Atomico, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. +2 for the mention of 4E. It's an inside joke with our group. Whenever anybody did anything cool or said anything cool or described themselves doing something awesome, we would give you a +2. And so the DMs could say it, or another player could say it. So when you went to make your attack, if you kind of were like, said something really awesome and give a really cool description, or just really got into it, anybody at the table could say, I really like that, +2. And it became just sort of an inside joke with my entire friend group that +2 basically meant like, good job, well done, we like what you're doing. Domble says, got started in 4E, will always be a soft spot. Yeah, I think it's a hell of a game. I really do. I understand the criticisms against it, but I think it was ahead of its time, and it was in a direction that people were not prepared to really embrace at that time. So, but I think it had some incredible design elements. Some of the development of it was a little questionable at times. They got some of the math wrong. Like the idea behind the game and how to build the system was sublime. And more importantly, they actually had a plan, a real solid plan. I don't think you really saw a game with that firm of a design plan until Pathfinder 2. But the way that they implemented it at times was a little bit wonky, which is why you had a lot of criticisms about the monster manual math being kind of wonky, and it needed some feats later on to help smooth out the math curve. And so, yeah. Damian Williams says, if you did that in PF2E, it would break the game. Maybe. One of the things that I think you could get away with more of in Pathfinder 2nd Edition is just giving people circumstance bonuses if they do something cool. We don't have that, like, oh, you're on higher elevation, you get a bonus to hit like you used to in Pathfinder 1. But if you give out people circumstance bonuses for interacting and chewing on the ceremony, that's probably not the worst thing in the world. I mean, it wouldn't stack with the aid action, which a lot of people are relying on anyways. But I think giving out a +1 or a +2 circumstance bonus for using the scenery, interacting with the battlefield, role playing in a really cool way, making the table, making the game experience more fun. I think that's awesome. So, and you could always do, Sylvan Orion says, you could always do a +1 instead of a +2. Yeah. So, I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, Damien, we went, we've been going to Gen Con since basically the release of 3rd edition. And so we were there through the end of 3rd edition and seeing 4th edition get released and seeing everything kind of play out. And I was really involved in the scene. And I always wonder, and people used to talk about this. I even heard a Wizards of the Coast developer say, if they had called this Dungeons and Dragons : tactics, the Final Fantasy tactics was very clearly different than a Final Fantasy game, but they stuck that tactics on the end of it. And so you said, oh, okay, it gets a pass because it's not real Final Fantasy, it's Final Fantasy Tactics. The problem with D&D 4th edition is it was basically like, look, we're not going to tell you how to make up rules and stuff like that, because that you're going to do that anyways, or you're not going to do it. Our job is just to give you a very solid set of rules that work. And then they did that. So people didn't like that. They wanted craziness. They wanted wonkiness. And so then you got 5th edition, which was absolutely a knee-jerk reaction to the failure of 4th edition, and again, there was recently a big Twitter chat or Twitter post from one of the main designers of 4th edition who said we didn't lose money on it. It just didn't hit our sales expectations and figures. So to say that it was a failure is not true. It made money. It just didn't make as much money as they wanted it to. So then even there was, and I was a big believer of this. I thought this was true for many, many, many years. They said that Pathfinder 1 at one point was outselling D&D 4th edition. And I had always heard that. I had always believed that to be true. There's a sort of a gaming industry magazine called ICV2 that does comic book stuff as well. And they had always reported that, Pathfinder 1 is outselling 4th edition D&D. And this person on Twitter was basically like, no, it didn't. 4th edition outsold Pathfinder 1. And everyone was kind of poo-pooing him. And then someone from Paizo was like, yeah, listen, hey, I worked at Paizo during that time. No, we did not outsell 4th edition D&D. And so it was kind of, I was even like, wow, okay. So, but what really happened with 4th edition is it didn't attract new players the way they wanted it to, and it didn't convert old players who had never even moved to 3rd edition from their older games. And that's what 5th edition has done. 5th edition has brought back some of the old players, but what it really did is just brought in a ton of new players. And that's why it's been so successful. All right. I was not, wait, was that Gen Con? Yeah, I was at Gen Con 2019. That was when Pathfinder 2 released. In fact, that was the last Gen Con I went to because 2020 basically got canceled. And then 2021, this just a couple months ago, we had tickets, we had a hotel room, but we made the call that it just wasn't worth the risk. And we didn't really want to go and have to be masked up all the time and deal with all the possible headaches that were going to be associated with that. So the last 2 years have been the first time I've missed Gen Con in basically 20 years. So yeah, I was at Gen Con 2019. In fact, I went into Gen Con 2019, not even really planning on picking up the Pathfinder 2nd edition core rulebook. Like, I knew it was releasing. I had looked at some of the stuff in the beta, but I'd never really paid much attention to the game. And then I walked into the main exhibitor hall, and I was expecting there to be this unbelievable line at the Paizo booth to pick up your new CRB for the new edition. And it wasn't. There was basically no wait. And I walked in and, talked to some of the designers and ended up picking up a copy of the book, and as did Mr. Tim Carpenter. And we started flipping through it, and we thought, all right, hey, okay, it's pretty cool. Then we saw the character sheet for the first time, and we were like, holy hell, what is going on with this game? But it all worked out in the end there. So, just had a fun thought. +1, but you can't crit unless nat 20. Nah, don't. No, if you're gonna give someone a +1, let them crit. Like, it's okay. Your game will be fine. They earned it. They interacted and participated in your game. If you're rewarding them, let it be a reward. It's totally fine. I disagree with the tactics label. Yeah, I think you are completely correct. In fact, while they didn't always work that well, they had some problems. 4th edition at least tried to approach the exploration and non-combat side of things with the skill challenge. So at least it tried. I don't think it fully succeeded the way any of us wanted to, but at least it tried. And you can't say that about 5th edition. They kind of just went back to the old school way of just, here's your miles marched per minute per day, and said, there you go, that's everything you need. Let's see here. Kevin, I'm assuming you're talking about like the rise of 5th edition in an RPG space. I think that's true. More people playing role-playing games is probably good for other role-playing games, but at the same time, 5th edition has a very strong gravitational pull, and it's kind of reached a critical mass, because for an RPG to be successful, you don't just have to be interested in it, right? You need to find 3 or 4 other people who are interested in it, and one of them potentially interested in running a game. And so finding and collecting enough people to play that has been difficult because of how pervasive 5th edition is and how all in a lot of people are on the system. So, yeah. Perhaps, yeah. As I was saying this on our Discord the other day, that at my local Barnes & Noble, the only category of books that they have behind the shelf, so you have to go to the book section and buy or take like a fake cardboard book and then take it to the front desk to buy it, because they keep them basically behind the cashier register, are Dungeons and Dragons book. Not Pathfinder books, not other role-playing games books, just Dungeons and Dragons. And I asked them why, and they said, because this is the second most stolen category of book at our entire store. And I recently went to a half-price bookstore, and they had their D&D books under lock and key. And these weren't like super rare old tomes. It was just like a random copy of 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide. So I guess, the demand is high. I did not get to play at the PF1 special at Gen Con 2019. Many years ago, I kind of stopped playing D&D and PF1 and stuff, which are like my mainstay games and usually have been at Gen Con. When I play, if I go to Gen Con, it's usually just to see the sights and, be a part of the experience. But if I play role-playing games, or I should say the role-playing games that I do play, are almost exclusively through a organization called Indie Games on Demand. And it's a lot of very small press stuff, early access stuff that some of the designers have been kind of working on and want to beta test in a public forum, or it's very popular sweetheart games of the indie game press revolution. So, playing games like Apocalypse World, Dungeon World, Monster Hearts, Blades in the Dark, Scum and Villainy, Lady Blackbird, Aegon, okay. Okay, sorry about that. It seemed to flicker. Hopefully. Okay, I don't know what that was, but my YouTube just yelled at me and was like, "Hey, this is not working." But all right, well, there we go. So interestingly, I don't know if this is the case, but when you go live on YouTube, it gives you an option to set how much latency you want between when I speak and when you guys see it, and then I get back your message. And like the default setting is like 15 seconds out to you, 15 seconds back to me. So it's like a 30-second round trip. And I tried to shorten that, and it does say that can lead to some stream instability issues. So I guess I should put that as a warning. All right. Spells time. I agree. All right, let's get to it. All right, let's start here with our existing spells. So here we go. Okay, Fear is still going to be amazing because it is still doing what it needs to do. You're still going to want to be able to affect people with the frightened condition. It's amazing. Horizon Thunder Sphere. I mean, Horizon Thunder Sphere. Yeah, we know that one's good. So yeah, moving on. In fact, I would say bonus to the primal list for having Horizon Thunder Sphere. Okay, let's take a look at our A tier class here. We got Burning Hand, Shockwave Grease, Gust of Wind, and Shocking Grasp. These spells are all very good. Still just as good. Still good at doing damage. Dare I say, a little. Oh, okay. Please move the current spell element under the primal level 1 element. Only if I could, Vin. Only if I could. Unfortunately, the current spell is in the Photoshop window, which is located here, so it's actually built into that. I would have to do something dramatically different, and I can't do that right now. So, yeah, I don't think any of these change. I would say that, obviously a druid has a little bit better armor class and a little bit better defensive hit points and stuff than a traditional arcane type caster. So kind of like the Magus, these could be maybe a little bit more powerful. Well, look, what do you want from me? I mean, the way the elements work, I can't do anything about it. Like this isn't just one big Photoshop thing. There's like a browser window here, Photoshop here, graphical elements here. It's a mess. So yeah, I do think some of these spells that are a little bit more close contact, close and personal, like your Burning Hands, like your Shocking Grasp. If you got a little bit more hit points, a little bit more armor class, it's not nearly as scary to go in. But I don't think it really changes the the tiering too much. Did I miss the part where we put random spell names on top of the list was explained? Yeah, those are the new primal spells that we need to sort, that we need to rank. So those are what we're going to get to after we kind of clear out the existing tier lists. So moving on, we've got Acidic Burst, Goblin Pox, Jump, Spider Sting, Charm, Hydraulic Push, Mud Pit. Again, I don't think any of these really change. I still think that for this type of spell list, they're not hurting. The primal classes aren't hurting for damage dealing and that kind of stuff. So I don't think any of these things get any particularly better or worse. I think Charm is probably a little bit more useful for the druid, but than it would be for the wizard. But I digress. Maybe not for the sorcerer though. It's probably about the same for the sorcerer. All right, C tier: Airburst, Fleet Step, Shattering Gem, Tether, Featherfall, Pummeling Rebel, Summon Animal. I do want to talk real quick. Something we need to consider. Something that's very disappointing. Something that you may not be aware of, but us at the Knights of Last Call, with the power of the Night Nation army at our back, have sort of figured out. 3 action spells. So, 3 action spells, like Summon Animal, like any of the summon spells, have a problem that is endemic to the primal, or I should say, to the druid tradition. Okay? And I just want to talk about that real quick before we kind of get into other things. So, by definition, a 3-action spell is going to be verbal, it's going to be somatic, and it's going to be material. Now, verbal and somatic, you can cast these even if your hands are occupied. So, much more likely than a wizard or a sorcerer, a druid is probably going to have maybe a shield. After all, they do start the game with shield block, and some sort of weapon or something that they could attack with. So that means 9 times out of 10, I feel, a druid is probably going to have their hands full. And that's not a problem, even for somatic components, because as long as you can move your hands around, you can cast your somatic components just fine. The problem is material components. Material components require a free hand. And if you don't have a free hand, you can't get away with it. And some classes can use a focus instead of material components, but druids and clerics very specifically have to use a divine or a primal focus, which has special rules about the fact that you essentially have to use an interact action to pull it out, then cast the 3-action spell, and then put the action, and then put the holy symbol or the primal focus away. So to answer Anthony's question, does PF2E have foci like 5th edition? They do. So if you don't want to have your, bag of material components, your wizard could use an amulet or a crystal or something like that. But the wizard can actually kind of just, as part of casting the spell. Now, they still have to have a free hand, mind you. They still have to have a free hand, the wizard does. But the wizard can basically just grab the amulet as part of casting the spell and cast a 3-action spell. a druid or a cleric either has to have a material component pouch, or if they have their holy symbol, they have to pull it out and hold it with their free hand. Either way, clerics and druids both essentially really can't cast 3-action spells unless they're going to keep a hand free. Now that's true for wizards too, but with druids and clerics, specifically war priests, who get like shield block as a feat as part of being that class, you assume that and they tend to have, quote, better weapon proficiencies in terms of weapon selection than their, sorcerer and wizard counterpart. You are more likely to expect a cleric to have a mace or a warhammer and a shield, and a druid to have some sort of scimitar or other sort of sickle and a shield. And that makes it very, very difficult for them to cast these 3-action spells. A buckler, I don't think could help, actually. I think a buckler does not allow you to it doesn't actually count as a free hand. I could be wrong about that, but I'd have to double check. But, yeah. What a silly rule. I agree. Yeah. Hands. Another reason sorcerers have S rank. And Self-Confessed Cynic is completely correct here. Why? Because sorcerers have a class ability which lets them treat all material components as somatic components. So when a sorcerer casts a 3-action spell, it's verbal, somatic, somatic. So they don't need their hands other than to be able to move around. They don't actually have to have a free hand with nothing in it to be able to cast these spells. So, that's where we're at. You can, but not if you're a druid or a cleric. You can pull out your focus as a free action, but not if you're a druid or a cleric. There are, the cleric has a 2nd level feat called Divine Emblazoned Armaments. It lets you carve a runic symbol into your shield or into your weapon, and it lasts for a year and basically lets you use it as divine focus. But now you have to take a feat just to cast a spell that anybody else could take anyways. So you getting a bonus feat didn't really matter because you had to use another feat, one of your class feats, mind you, just to be able to function as your class. So you do have to have a free hand for material focus. Yes, that's true. But read specifically divine focus and primal focus for druid and cleric. All right, Blueberry mentions Emblazoned Armaments. Yeah, if you're taking that feat, it's because you want to be able to cast 3 actions. And it actually it's very important because not only of the summon spells, but because of the heal spell, right? Which is another one that tends to get 3 actioned. Nimble Shield Hand would work. Or no, it doesn't. Maybe Nimble Shield Hand just lets you use interact actions. So I don't know that would let you use a material component pouch either. Okay, it specifically lets you use interact. All right. Right, except you can't block with a buckler, right? So, that's another good point. Yep. 3 actions make their pets sad. Not that all druids have to have pets, but another good solution. I agree. Summoners also don't need material clothing. Oh, okay, that's a good point. That is a good point. Summoners kind of are on that same track as a sorcerer, so that's a good point. So anyways, so to that end, going back to our list here, I do think Shattering Gem for our primal list is reduced. And the reason is because we have heal now. We don't need to be sucking up 5 hit points with a 2-action spell when we can heal 1d8 plus 8 with a 2-action spell at long range. So definitely nothing there. So that's I think that's important. What else do we got here? All right. Well, Longstrider is maybe you can block with a buckler. But it's just really shitty. What am I thinking of? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, you can raise hand. All right. It's hardness 3. Okay. And it has 6 hit points. So, I mean, yes, technically you can block with a buckler, but it's not really that great. Yes, absolutely. But I just wanted to make that, it's one of those things where you're not able to fully utilize all that your class is giving you. And, it's, that's the only reason it's kind of shitty, especially because again, the sorcerer, just can cast these spells much easier. So, all right. So back to our wands. Longstrider is still really great and still OP. I think this all stays here. Pest form is in our scroll case, but if you're a druid who really wants to focus on being a shapeshifter, I think it could be argued that it would be that it could be just a solid A tier spell for a druid who really wants to be that kind of shapeshifter focus. And I think that would be kind of cool, especially if you're doing it all the time. If you do have a big pet, pet cache might become more useful for sure than it would be for just a simple tiny little familiar. But the pet cache, if you have like a big bear or something like that, I think that could be a lot more useful as well. Still probably in the scroll case, but I think it could be more useful if you have the pet. All right. Well, let's get into our spell, shall we? We okay with that? All right. Well, our first spell is Animal Allies. It's a new spell from Secrets of Magic. It's a 2-action, somatic and verbal. It's a 5-foot emanation from you. So already it's cool that it's an emanation, but not so cool that it's just only immediately around you. Basic reflex save, and you do 3d4 points of damage to everybody around you. From basically insects and all this other stuff. It's piercing damage, which is kind of cool. It's a physical damage type. It's not like an elemental damage type. It heightens pretty nicely. 3d4 is kind of a wonky number. So Self-Confessed Cynic says negative. I think pet cache is standard for a pet druid. Definitely not in the scroll case. All right, I'll buy that. I'm not giving it A tier though. I'll put it in B tier. So Zandy, yeah, I think that is part of the balancing, for sure. But at the same time, if druids got shields and armor and cast like a sorcerer, why would you ever pray a primal sorcerer? Well, the bloodline powers, free focus points, you still get a pretty good amount of damage. So Domble says really good. You say this is ongoing. I don't see where this is ongoing. This looks like this is just a one-shot fit. So, Self-Confessed Cynic says B, and yeah, I think the B is probably where I'm at as well with this spell. So it's a pretty good spell. All right. Okay. Domble says, never mind. I thought this was sustained. Emanation got me confused. Yep. No, it's just an immediate blast around you, which is, again, pretty common for these kind of point blank AoEs. But I could imagine a scenario where a druid's going to, again, they have a little bit more hit points, a little bit higher armor class. They've got that sick buckler able to block. So, I mean, I think it's fairly comparable to a acidic burst. So, Primal sorcerers get more spells per day than druid, and it isn't prepared. Very different, perhaps better. Yeah, we haven't done a class tier list yet for the Knights channel, but I'm gonna let you in on a little secret that the sorcerer is pretty high up there. They have a lot of versatility, and not only can they get all the same primal spells that a druid could get, but then because of their cross-budded evolution, can even pick up spells from other traditions. So it's pretty good. Yeah, sorcerers real good. Real good. Animal Allies reminds of the infestation cantrip. I don't know that one. My 5th edition knowledge is not as good as it is other places. All right, well, let's talk about Detect Poison, so we can power through that. What do we got next? Detect Poison. All right. Well, it's uncommon because, of course, you are... anytime you're sort of using divination to figure things out, like this could be used to solve a murder mystery, so it has to be uncommon. It's from the core rulebook. And it's a 30 foot, and you determine if a creature's poisonous, and if it is poisonous, how, and what types of poison it is, and yeah. And of course, it's one object or creature. And if the target's in poison in multiple ways, you don't get all the different types. You have to heighten it to level 2 to learn the actual types of poisons. Like, okay, I mean, this spell is clearly not great, but it does what it says it does. It detects poison. That's fine. But like, why do I have to heighten it to learn the types of poison? Like, it's just kind of annoying, right? Like, just make it do that. Like, why does this is a pointless bureaucrat. Oh, this isn't a cantrip. No, it's a first level spell, which I'm okay with. I'm actually okay with it being a first level spell. I just think it's crazy that you have to heighten this thing in order to actually be able to figure out what type of poison it is. It even goes into say certain substances like lead and alcohol are poisons and so mask other poisons. So like, if someone was if something had alcohol on it or was drunk, you would detect it as poison. And you'd be like, I don't know. I have to heighten this. It's just kind of crazy here. We got a couple people saying it should be in a wand. Yeah, I think, yeah, they're mostly, I think they're almost all uncommon just because detect spells have the ability to shortcut basically your kind of investigations and mysteries. And so they want to give GMs that extra little bit of ammo in their pouch to say, hey, I don't want my players to be able to just cast spells and figure things out. Anthony, well, I think you could just make a medicine knowledge check anyways. So, it did used to be a cantrip in Pathfinder. So that is something to be considered about. So everyone's saying wand. Really, you're going to cast this once a day, every day? I don't think so. It's going to get C in the scroll case, and I'm happy with that. Come fight me. Join the Patreon, or if you're already in the Patreon, you can yell at me there. Yeah. Yeah. Detect magic is a cantrip. The ability to sense the unsensible. The ability to detect the weaves of magic flowing through the air. Yeah, I can cast that infinite times per day. You know that. Oh, what a trained dog can do. That's powerful magic, limited by slots. All right. Thank you, Blueberry Detective. I appreciate you. Self-confessed cynics think C is generous. I like that it doesn't have a check. It's not making me jump through stupid hoops. At least it just tells me what the damn thing does. So I give it credit for that. And magic in Pathfinder 2, that's saying something. Daco Popper says scroll makes sense as well. Thank you. All right, I'm good with that. All right, well, our next spell is Gritty Wheeze. And I'm not going to lie. I don't know what this spell does. Nor should anybody. Here we go. We got the Gritty Wheeze. Uh-oh. Spoilers. Watch out. Okay. Quins. So Quins, we are doing the Primal spell list today. And so our Arcane spell list, Magic Missile, ended up in S tier for being amazing and incredible. So that is where we ended up with. William Brandis says that a first level scroll is 4 gold, but a hireling is 4 silver pieces. You do the math. That is true. Hire somebody. Why don't you taste this? See how we feel about it. You earned it. Here. You have completed your adventure. Heroes of legend, you have come forth. And for this, I will grant you the greatest of rewards. No, not lands and titles, nor a favorable marriage, nor heaping bags of gold, or powerful artifacts of an ancient time. No, I will give you the ability to detect poison. An uncommon ability amongst those in the land. All right. Threshold of Knowledge is a free RPG Day adventure. All right. I found it because someone asked me to add it to the PDF to Foundry. Well, that's awesome. Kevin, if you're the creator of PDF to Foundry, well done, sir. That thing is awesome. So props to you. Big props. That thing is incredible. So, Gritty Wheeze. It's very right. We've seen a million of these before, right? Which is 15-foot cone doing 2 dice of damage. Sometimes it's Burning Hands is D6. Some of the shittier ones have been D4, and we look to be getting into that category of shittier. But what else do we got here? Well, it's a kind of a weird spell, right? Duration is see below. Water creatures, plants fail 1 category worse. I mean, that's not horrible. I mean, it'll come up occasionally, not all the time. And it's basically basic save, but if they get a little bit of extra, right? So, well, Kevin, that's quite all right because I used it for Abomination Vaults and it worked like a charm. That thing is amazing. Well done. I cheer you, sir. Very, very, very good. Yeah, I would normally say, well, that's okay that it doesn't do Rise of the Rune Lords. Because I was like, oh, well, I'm not playing that every VTT, but it looks like I will be now. So, but that's okay because with this live stream setup, the Knights may also try to do a second game. We're kind of interested in Quest for the Frozen Flame, which is the new, basically Stone Age adventure path, which might be, which comes out here very shortly. And potentially we might be looking to do that one. So that would be awesome. Yeah, Self-Confessed Cynic. Yeah, we plug it all the time. All the time. We love it. It's incredible. Really awesome. Strips all the art, all the NPC descriptions. It's incredible. It's like a weaker version of Horde Wilting, but with different flavor. Yeah, I agree. You know, these sort of less damage, but if they fail, they get this really minor effect for a round. Really puts it into, I think, the D tier. This is the same kind of category as Chilling Spray, Scouring Sand. It's all the same. So, you know. So, Quest for the Frozen Flame. Well, I don't know. It seems kind of cool for me. I don't know. Especially if you really leaned into it. Like reading through the player's guide, like it was like trying to say how you would fit every class in there, like alchemists and gunslingers and inventors. And I'm like, no. Like if you're going to do this, you need to do this kind of like, you know, primitive tribal people of the North and like really lean into that. And I think, you know, if there was ever a kind of an AP to really really look hard at restricting classes and archetypes, it would be one like this. So I understand that Paizo wants people to be able to play anything, but I think this is definitely a case where less might be more. So I don't know. Will they help the competition? I don't know. I mean, there's definitely advantages to doing it on the VTT, but the biggest advantage is we're going to be able to do it live. So we're going to do this live, but we're going to have all the knights join in, which is, of course, another expense for us because I'm going to have to buy Zoom Pro Edition to be able to get more than 2 people for 40 minutes. But, it'll be fun. But the good news is I think by the time, hopefully, COVID is safe again, we're going to be back in the studio. We're going to be doing that live, too. So, this has been a good learning experience. So thank you, everyone. Why in God's name would you be a dwarf again? You're already a dwarf. You've been like 3 dwarves. Be something different. Anthony says only marshals and primal casters. I'm not opposed to that. Although, like a weird witch, with some crazy kooky occult spells is sort of like a kind of like a evil hex witch could be kind of pretty cool. So, very cool. All right. What's our next spell? Alphabetically. Oh, sweet. Heal. Well, let's talk about heal. Everybody knows what heal does, right? I mean, for starters, it's only in Divine and Primal. So, I mean, one of the biggest reasons to go into these traditions is for this spell. It's absolutely the most powerful healing spell in the game. It scales extremely well. Very versatile. We've talked about this before. You can cast it as a 1, 2, or 3 action spell. I personally wish that the 1 action version was a little bit more potent. It's already range touch, single target. I just feel like losing out on that extra +8 is asking a lot, but it is the chat is just blown up with S tiers. So yeah, Anthony. In fact, the fact that Anthony says heal's not a free spell for Primal, but still great. Right. The fact that the Divine Caster, at least not the Divine Sorcerer, but when we think Divine Caster, we usually think Cleric. The fact that they get the free Font of Healing and they get all those extra Cleric means that in a way the healing is even more important for the Druid because they don't get those free spells. So I'm a big fan, and it's one of the foundational spells of the game. So it's an easy S tier. Horizon Thunder Sphere. All right. I guess I'll have to make a new voice. It's just like heal. That's cool, but it's still a good spell. Domble, when we do our class tier list, you're going to be disappointed. I don't like the War Priest. I think it's built incorrectly and they messed it up. But I agree, being able to be in the midst of melee and attack and move and still cast a 1 action spell to have that flexibility is really, really, really cool. Let's see. Ben. Hi, Ben. Hi, Ben. Don't do that. Let me, after the stream, let me go and figure, do another version of that. Yes, after many, it was always kind of weird, right? When you play Dungeons and Dragons, because they were called like potions of healing, but then the spell was called Cure Light Wounds, Cure Serious Wounds, Cure Critical Wounds. And then in 3rd edition, they introduced Cure Moderate Wounds. And so it took me a little bit to get used to it being called Heal, but I do agree. My only complaint about it being called Heal is there used to be a really cool spell called Heal, and that spell I miss. So pour one out for Heal. That spell was a lot of fun. Yeah, that checks out. Yeah, hey, my squeezing arm, thank you very much for the super chat. I agree. I don't like rogues as like a class. Not in Pathfinder 2. I'm just saying like as a concept. I don't like being the kind of sneaky skill monkey, shady guy, sneak attack. That's just not my I've never liked those classes. I just don't like them. But even I have to admit the power, versatility, especially in this game, Pathfinder 2, with the ability for all those skill feats and skill increases to give you a ton of flexibility. Rogues can do a lot of different things, have a lot of different angles. Their class feat list is amazing. Sneak attack is very powerful, especially with the crit mechanic in the game. They're a really, really, really great class. Much better than I would ordinarily admit to. So I do agree with you. Very much. Super Chat. Super Chat says his S rank is fighter, rogue, and sorcerer. Yeah, probably. We'll get there. We haven't gotten there yet. We'll get there. I'm sure we'll get a lot of... I don't know. Maybe we won't get a lot of people. I mean, there were classes that we will say I don't think are good. And, people can say it. I like playing them, and that's fine. They are correct. They do like playing them. But that doesn't mean the class is good. But that's a problem. That's a very good list. Self-confessed cynic. And if you think about it, there's like 3 things you can do in Pathfinder 2, right? You can fight, you can use skills, and you can use spells. Those 3 classes kind of do those 3 things the best. And so that makes sense that those would be your 3 S ranked classes. So, yeah, I know. That was stupid. I mean, whatever. If you want to be flippant and I mean, I get that he doesn't really think it's an F tier class, but yeah, that was a little bit silly. Yeah. Agree. Daco Popper, I completely agree. That is, I mean, a lot of the other spells that we're going to go through, they're good, but they're not like amazing, right? They're not great. And, but having access to heal is really powerful. And that's one of the reasons why I think Sorcerer is so good, because a Sorcerer can go Arcane and then with Cross-Blooded Evolution end up picking up heal spell. So that is why Sorcerer is really, really powerful. Yeah, heal was an amazing spell. Harm was an amazing spell too. A lot of fun. Yeah, I think a War Priest fully dedicated to a support role is probably the best way to do it. But I think when people think War Priest, they get the shield block, they get the better, quote unquote, the better weapon. I think they are like, I want to be that sort of martial melee cleric that you could kind of build, right? The sort of COD-Zilla, the COD-Zilla from PF1, where a cleric could cast a bunch of buffs on them spells and be the equivalent to or better than the barbarian or the ranger or the fighter. And of course, because of the design ethic of Pathfinder 2, no matter how many spells a cleric casts, they will never be better than the martial characters. One of the things that they said is, we don't want spellcasters to just cast a few spells and invalidate entire other classes' existence. And so part of the hill that they're trying to skate up is this design pressure, which says that casters can't actually ever be that good at things that non-casters have kind of carved out as a niche. All right, well, that was heal. Zandy, how would you rate the Druid? I would rate it highly, but I think you would disagree, lol. It's not an S tier class, but I would probably say it's an A tier class. They have part of the thing I rate it on isn't just absolute power, right? It's also fun and functionality. The Druid has a lot of different ways that you could build it. You could build it as a very spellcasting heavy class. You could build it as a very pet heavy class. And I like having options and versatility. You don't feel super pigeonholed. Oh, you can also be a shapeshifter Druid. So I really appreciate that. And I think it's actually a really fun class. Also, the primal spell list, as we're seeing, is pretty damn good. So it gets props for that. Whoa. Hey, thanks for the subscription. I don't think I've ever seen Burl cast heal. No, he doesn't have it. He didn't take it up. No, you made that up. Matt does not have heal a signature spell. Matt Burl Primal picked up a staff of healing and technically has that as his staff each day. So he has limited access to a number of low-level heal spells. He's just never used that. Which isn't too surprising because we use my stamina rules in our AP, so healing isn't as important in our game as it is in other games. All right. Next up is Juvenile Companion. My companion is acting juvenile. That looks like I didn't click this one. All right. Well, this spell, 2 actions, 10 minutes, and it turns your companion into its juvenile form, making it appear harmless. It becomes tiny. It gets no reach. Its speeds are nerfed. It gets additional weaknesses. And you can heighten it and make it last an hour. Wow. Well, it's Flame Loud says D and maybe scroll. Yeah, that sounds right to me. This is one of those situations where what the hell is the spell called? Pet Cache just does exactly what you want this to do, but better. This is a role-playing spell, but it's done in a very chibi way. I don't know how else to describe it. Turn your thing into a baby pet. This spell is... I could think of like one use for it. But the fact that Pet Cache exists... It's F tier scroll. I think that's the worst you can get. So, F tier scroll. Also, it lasts 10 minutes. And if you heighten it, it lasts 1 hour. So, it's horrible. So it doesn't even do what it does. It doesn't even do what it's supposed to do well. Like, if you could bring it into town and it lasts until the next day's preparation and you could just, store your tiger in your purse, okay, that would be cool. Okay, maybe. But this is horrible. Yeah, I agree. If this was unlimited duration as a feat, it would be fine. I like the spell, but it fails to Pet Cache. And, chibi is the right description. That's correct. Yeah, this is... Yeah, why is it only 10 minutes? What? This isn't a buff. It's a nerf. Look how it makes your character, the thing, really horrible. By the way, they still might be like, hey, why do you have, a pet tiger? Like, that's a little weird, isn't it? Yeah, so. Yeah, that probably checks out. Yeah. Yeah, you better just hope they don't hit your pet with a stick. I do like the idea of casting this when you're 20th level and your pet is legendary, nimble, savage, mature, and sure, it gets weakness 5, but other than that, its physical stats aren't unchanged, and that could be funny just for the lulz, right? The fact that it also makes the reach 0, it's just ugh. All right. Well, we've got Lose the Path. This should be a good one, right? Lose the Path. That's an illusion spell from Primal. You don't see too many of those. A little bit of overlap with occult. Okay. It's a reaction. That's kind of interesting. It's a somatic reaction. That's actually really interesting. So it technically provokes attacks of opportunity, something to keep in mind. Flame Loud. I think that is something to point out. Druids, not necessarily the primal spell list, but druids, like clerics, do have access to all of their spells when they prepare for the day, and that is something to be considered. That is a nice benefit. All right. Well, if a creature strides and they're within 60 feet, you hit them and they make a will save, and if they fail, they are led off course. All right. If they fail, everything is difficult terrain. And if they critical fail, you determine where it gets to go for that one stride. Domble, you said this is an S tier spell. I hope you're joking. This is, I mean, 60-foot range is something. I respect that. It's a reaction. I also respect that. And, especially casters who don't always have a ton of stuff that they could do with their reaction. And the fact that it basically, obviously if they succeed at the save, then, nothing happened to them. But it's will save. And let's just assume the most likely case scenario, they fail. Well, then essentially everything's difficult terrain, which means they are going to move half as far with this one stride, right? Not for the whole turn, but for the one stride. So realistically, they're going to have to stride again. So you're trading a reaction and a spell slot if they fail for one action, with the possibility that, that by having to take an extra action to move, maybe it does completely essentially screw their turn. Yeah, I think to eat an action on a boss is pretty good. Yeah, this is definitely not a spell you would ever cast. And right, and this is the dilemma with spells like this, which is the spell that you would want to cast this on is a single target, higher level, bigger threat foe. Those are also the people most likely to make the save and be, in this case, completely unaffected. So you have to realize that when you're casting this against the kind of target that you're talking about, which is that higher level foe, 25% of the time, I should say 75% of the time, basically, more or less, it's going to do nothing. And then the other 25% of the time, it will work. And so it's, that's where you have to kind of where the rubber meets the road, right? And that's assuming that their will save is one of their lower saves, right? If they're higher level than you and their will save is reasonable or good, it's a problem. Yeah, Lance Quagmire says, not incapacitation. That's correct. That spell would be completely unusable, but Self-confessed cynic, for someone who wanted us to get going and get going through this, you're always going back to other stuff. Does Druid know having all their spells known equal air bubble C? I still don't think air bubble is a good spell. So I just don't like what it does because, even if I was going into an underwater adventure type thing, I don't even know if I'd want that spell just because of the way that it's a short range, and then if they go under the water and then they come back up, it ends immediately, which means if they were to go back under the water again, you would have to cast the spell again. So I don't necessarily know that I agree with it being a C. Sure. It's not as big of a deal, I guess, when you have access to every spell, but it's still D. I still would never take it, so. Yes, if it was free to cast, I would do that too. Yeah, that's true. Even when it does work and they stay under the water, it's a minute direction as well. Blueberry says, I thought it was meant to deal with poisonous gas. I don't know. Let's find out. it says it can't breathe. So the trigger specifically has to be an environment in which it cannot breathe. And so if the environment was full of poisonous gas, guess what? It can still breathe. Ergo, that spell wouldn't even be allowed to be cast. So that's how good that spell is. Hey guys, I took a spell that surrounds your head with a globe of pure air. And you're like, cool. The room is filling with poison gas. It's like, yeah, but you're not having any problems breathing that gas. So it's not a problem of lack of oxygen. It's a problem of massive inhalation of poison. Ergo, that spell won't do it. Blueberries. Blueberries is F. Straight to F. Sorry, self-confessed cynic. I gotta agree. It goes back down. All right. Walker apparently uses lose the path on the Winter Witch, clinging, ice, circumstance penalty, tangle root status, nasty lockdown. You could breathe water once. Yeah. So here's how I feel about lose the path. I feel it's a reaction, so it's not going to go in the wand or the scroll. It's an interesting effect. I'll put it into C tier. It's kind of similar in a way to Featherfall, I guess. Probably comes up more useful or more often than that. So, all right, let's get into our Magic Fang and Magic Stone. Yeah, CC plus. All right, bye. All right. Going through these here, about halfway through. Magic Fang. Well, we know Magic Fang. It's magic weapon, but for unarmed attacks. So, great for your monk. Great for your animal companion. Great for anybody that has access to unarmed attacks, like a dragon sorcerer who has access to a spell that gives them claws. Anybody who can make an unarmed attack, this is essentially magic weapon, but for them. Now, obviously, it is not as all-encompassing as the power of magic weapon, right? Which is going to affect, much more types of abilities. That being said, one thing that we do have to consider is that this is a primal only spell. So they are the only people who can get this. And, obviously, if nobody in your party has unarmed attacks, this spell is an F tier, obviously. But if you have people in your party who have unarmed attacks, or your animal companions have unarmed attacks, or you have a number of Beastmasters in the party, which if you're using free archetypes, chances are good that somebody is a Beastmaster. I feel like this spell is, in that situation and in that case, just as good as magic weapon. And so I am going to put it into the A tier. It does have the limitation that it does not heighten. In fact, Anthony says, is there a greater magic fang? Nope, there's not a greater magic fang, and there's not a greater magic weapon. Nobody's really sure why. I would love to understand that. That was always something that was in, so in the previous versions of the game is that spellcasters could use their ability. So, hey, welcome, Dale. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the channel. We appreciate you. Robert says it should be a B. And Flame Loud says an A is fair. I like it. Guys, this is a big powerful one. And I also say that it's probably likely that, your animal companions and stuff, they don't do as much damage as maybe some of the, other characters. So they could really, really use this spell. All right, boom, moving on. That was Magic Fang, not to be confused with. Yeah, sorcerers can retrain the spell out, so it's not a huge issue. But I don't know why it scales. It's fun to cast, but all right, Magic Stone. Now, Magic Stone was actually like a sleeper spell in Pathfinder 1. It was actually really powerful randomly against the undead, and it was it made magical, pebbles do damage, but it was like double damage against undead. They were like nuclear bombs against undead. It was actually pretty sweet. So let's see if we still got this. All right, we got a divine spell with necromancy positive. Targets 1 to 3 stones. Okay, for a minute. And it makes them +1 striking, disrupting sling bullets. All right. That's pretty cool. It's sticking to it. I got to remind myself what disrupting does. It does an extra D6 positive damage to undead. And if you crit them, they're enfeebled 1. And that's D6 positive damage, which means against undead, which are weak to positive damage, which is a number of them, they're going to be taking, not only are they going to be taking an additional D6 points of damage from the disrupting, they could be taking an additional 5 or 10 damage from their weakness to positive energy. Wow. That is a powerful spell. Again, you can, it's kind of cool too. It's this 1, 2, 3 action spell targeting up to 3 stones. It lasts for a minute. These things are pretty powerful. That's a lot of damage. Obviously this spell is not as good as Magic Weapon in that regard. You would just cast Magic Weapon on their sling, but keep in mind that against undead, this is, crazy. But obviously, 3 attacks is not as much as a magic weapon. So I do have to account for the fact that is not that crazy against anything else. But it is very powerful against undead. So I'm going to go with the B tier. Magic Stone. I think it's cool. It retains that old school flavor. Self-confessed says B because of 3. And I agree. So not as good. Daco Popper's got it right. Yeah, that's right. That's their wheelhouse, right? The Radagast the Brown casts this, gives it to Frodo. Frodo. I agree with that. Anthony, you're 100% correct. Against undead that have the weakness, this is going to light them up. This is going to do a ton of damage, like crazy amounts of damage. So very cool. All right. Our next spell is Nettle Skin. Sounds cool. Up. It's from Threshold of Knowledge again, so watch out for the spoilers. We got a 2-action spell for a minute. And this gives you a damage shield, is what we would call this in EverQuest 1. Anybody who hits you for a minute takes 1d4 points of damage. But every time it does do the damage, the duration decreases by 1 round. So realistically, you might, in a 3 or 4 round combat, you might get hit 3 or 4 times, 5 times. So you're probably going to get 5 hits out of this. They got to be adjacent. They got to be using a melee or unarmed attack. But if you can get 3 or 4 hits out of this, you're doing 4d4 unmitigatable damage, right? Like, this isn't an attack roll. There's no save. They just take this damage. And that's, that's pretty cool. Obviously, you kind of don't want to be getting attacked a bunch, right? This spell is better the more you're getting wailed on. And, in my mind, this is a better spell when you're surrounded by a bunch of enemies, especially lower level ones, because the damage is going to be more meaningful then. But the problem is then the duration is going to wear out really, really quickly. But if you heighten this to a good level and you got attacked by like 6 or 7 or 8 lower level monsters, and it went off 6 or 7 times before the duration got shortened too much that it ended, you would have done a ton of automatic damage. So this is like the Druid's version of Magic Missile, and that really shows you how good Magic Missile spells are. Self-confessed, since it says it's a C. What if you use this while grappling somebody? Nothing. It would do nothing. Per the rules of the game, it would do nothing. That doesn't mean that a GM wouldn't be within their right to say that it does a little bit of damage each round that they remain in the grapple, but as written, it would do nothing. Maybe a B. Yeah, it's possible. There's always magic armor that could do anything. It's hard to compare Pathfinder 2 to 5th edition. They're very different games. Yeah, once you get hit 3 times, it's about the same amount of damage as a 2-action magic missile. So, yeah, you could cast this, and then you could wild shape. You could absolutely do that. It's also, by the way, a primal only spell. So something that we need to kind of consider there as well. Kind of a unique little spell to do the damage. I would like it a lot more if it does D6. But it is automatic, which I do respect. So I would normally put this spell into the C tier, but I respect the automatic damage, and I'm going to put it into B. Don't do magic missile dirty like that. I'm not planning on doing magic missile dirty like that. This would be kind of great if you were fighting 20 goblins. I mean, right? Because the best case scenario is you cast the spell and then you get attacked 10 times and somehow don't die, and they all take the damage. And so you've done 10d4 or 20d4 or 30d4 damage. So that would be like the best case scenario, but you're probably dead then. So, all right, next. We got a couple P's coming up here. We have Pass Without Trace. A classic old school spell. It probably would be better if it did 1 persistent bleed damage, but that's exactly the type of effect that Pathfinder 2 makes me want to stab myself in the eye for. Like, I don't want to be tracking. I already don't want to be tracking these little bonuses and these little damages, but tracking 1 persistent damage, as a GM, I'm almost just like, it bleeds to death. I'm just remove the mini from the battlefield. Like, I can't be bothered by this. Right. Pass Without Trace. Keep opening up this buckler. It's not right. All right, we got Pass Without Trace. It's another primal only spell. Does it let you pass without trace? Of course not. It only lasts an hour, and it obscures the tracks magically, but it just makes it +4 status bonus to track you or your spell DC, whichever is higher. And it doesn't really even work because it only targets, you guessed it, your tracks. And so you have to heighten it to 2 to even make it 8 hours, and then it has to go to 4th level in order for it to actually do what you kind of want it to really do. Oh no. I think I missed that tip. I apologize. I was reading. 1 second. Loading. Please wait. All right. Oh, okay. Never mind. We just had a subscription. Well, welcome. Sorry, I missed that. Just wanted to say welcome. Okay, back to where we were. I'm ready to say A for the spell, but don't know the position. So here's the thing. This spell, you're going to cast this spell. Like, you're casting this spell because you want to be able to move and not be tracked. And then you're going to cast this spell, which is specifically for that exact purpose. And, they're going to have a very reasonable chance of tracking you. It makes it harder to track you, yes, but it doesn't prevent it. And the most realistic way that you want to use the spell is for a long duration overland journey with your party, which means you need to use it at heightened 4th level in order to really get that effect. So, Kevin says, much more fair than 5th edition Pass Without Trace, aka nobody can ever cast, you've cast it. Yes, and 5th edition very much clings to the old way of Magic, where you cast a spell and it just solves the issue without any sort of real chance or opportunity. And you're like, but I'm the best tracker in the world. I'm a legendary tracker. Shouldn't I be able to track a 1st level druid who casts Pass Without Trace? And Pathfinder 2nd edition says, yes, you can. but it can also make the distinction between those two is you, the caster, are giving up this very limited resource in the form of your spell slots to be able to perform this effect. And that's the part that makes it unappealing. Flame says C, maybe B as a scroll. Damien says he wishes the spam bots would super chat, and I agree. Yeah, not often. That would be the answer. Yeah, not as ridiculous as the 5th edition version. Yeah, and 5th edition still has a lot of those. 5th edition went back to the old school ways where spells were really powerful because spell casters were completely reliant on their spells, and also there was a bias there, right? Like, it was magic. They weren't trying to make a game. They weren't trying to balance someone who could reshape reality or tap into the primal spirits of nature. They weren't trying to balance that against a guy who can swing a sword, right? Or a lady that can sneak and stab people in the dark. They were looking at it from the perspective of, okay, this person can cast magic. What should these powerful effects be able to do? Pathfinder 2 is very much more looking at it from the perspective of a game. And we don't want to invalidate other people's characters just because somebody else cast a spell. Yeah. So if you're Frodo, that's right. The fact that druids don't have to worry about spells known scrolls are actually a different calculus. No, yes, it is a different calculus, but it's also, I mean, you have to understand self-confessed cynic is obsessed with and only basically plays sorcerers. So he doesn't understand the mentality of prepared casting. It is a consideration. It's spelled because you need to make sure that you are changing your spell slots each day. Scrolls do have a component of, it's not just from the perspective of, I can't adjust to this because I only have a repertoire, not a prepared level, but it's also I didn't prepare for this, but this kind of, oh shit moment came out, and I would never have prepared for this, and now I can pull it out of my scroll case. So how would I fix this spell? Well, that's a good question. I think, for starters, I think some of these heightens are a bit extreme. I think the spell should probably have been 8 hours to begin with, and probably like heighten 2 would make it, or maybe heighten 3 would make it an entire group of people. The second is, instead of just making it a DC to track your checks or a +4 status bonus to the DC, I like the idea of making it so that maybe the person tracking you has to move at half speed. It's harder for them to track you. So even when they succeed at tracking you, because right now, if the person passes their check, they're going to track you just as if you had not cast the spell. So maybe doing something like reducing the success condition by 1 level, or making them have to spend extra time to track you, or something like that. So that rather than it being a sort of black or white, pass or fail, the spell either does something or it does nothing, I'd rather it be something that we can still play in the realm space that a legendary tracker could track you, but they're not going to be completely unfazed by you casting the spell. Yeah. All right. Total entropy is agreeing with self-confessed cynic, and that can never be a good thing. Yeah, if you want, Kevin, that's a good suggestion as well. That's probably a little bit more complicated for the spell slots than they wanted to do, which is you could like have a duration and then split it up amongst a group of people. So if you try to pass without trace, like a large party, you're only going to be able to do that for an hour or two. Whereas if it's just you and a companion, maybe you could do that all day. Yeah, I agree with that total entropy. It would be interesting if it gated tracking behind proficiency. That's another interesting thing. You can only be tracked by someone that is, expert or master in proficiency in survival. That'd be kind of cool too. And ultimately, Anthony arrives at the correct answer. I think C feels right. Yep, C feels right. I agree. It's a cool spell. It's primal only, which again, we have to take into consideration. And I'm going to put it in the scroll case. I don't think you're just going to have this one just hanging out. Yeah. Again, scroll. This is your everyday carry. You know, if you know that you're going into this crazy situation, you're going to change up your logic. All right, I'm going to knock these out real quick. Purify food and drink. You know what? Actually, purify food and drink goes to D. Putrefy food and drink goes to F. All right, moving on. If you have to ask why that's there, I mean, I guess you could ask, but I'm not going to entertain discussing those ratings unless people super chat me, because those spells are stupid and they should be cantrips, and arguably the second one, putrefy food, does nothing except promote being a troll. I'm gonna ruin. It's like the equivalent of like spitting in the soup. It's stupid. It's very dumb. All right. Where are we going to next? Those spells are horrible. All right. Protector Tree. All right. Maybe the P's can finish out strong. That is correct. You cannot piss on hospitality. I won't allow it. Yeah, this is what that spell does. I made your milk go rotten. It's stupid. All right, Protector Tree. It's a primal only spell. It's a conjuration. 30 feet, 1 minute, coming out. Only primal traditions. Right, we live in a world where I can manifest the ability to summon electrical arcs forever at will, but if it was a cantrip and you could just purify food, that would be broken. This is like a Pathfinder society problem. Any realistic campaign being played by a GM who doesn't have to be hamstrung by the rules this would never be an issue. So, right, yeah, Anthony, right, exactly. Cantrips already are crazy. So, I mean, Flame Loud, you are correct. They would be abused, and that's just what's crazy about it. All right, so Protector Tree. You get a tree, it grows, it pops up immediately. I love, sometimes Magic is so funny. Like, we judge these things based off of game experience, but it's like, this spell literally causes a 10-foot tree to just, with a 5-foot diameter, to just erupt into existence.
Been tipped $10. Please go into detail about the pros and cons of the putrefy spells, including role-playing considerations and how the campaign lore may tie into this in a meaningful way for my character's mission.
All right. All right. Well, I got to do it, obviously. Let me do Protector Tree really quick here. I'll finish this up. Anyways, a tree just pops up out of nowhere. That's a first level spell. Detecting poison in something, also first level spell. It's pretty crazy. I did ask for this. I did, so it's fine. It's fine, whatever. So whenever an ally adjacent to the tree is hit, the tree swings in. Again, think about this from like a Magic perspective. Not only are you creating a tree, you're creating like a quasi-living, animated, sentient tree, and it can just swing its arms and branches in. Divine Lance abuse much. That is true. I really appreciated someone in our Discord, I think it was GM Scott, said, yeah, like he changed in his campaign because otherwise, the cleric would just go around blasting everybody with Divine Lance because it only did damage to them if they were evil. And so you could just use it to determine if someone's evil, because if they're good, it just, it's like hitting them with a flashlight. But if they're evil, they're going to take damage. So it's pretty good. Totally not Vin. Yeah, correct. It's totally not Vin. It does say totally not Vin, so it can't possibly be Vin. Anyways, so you create a magical tree out of nothing. It pops up, and then it comes to life, and it swings down, and it defends your allies. This is a level 1 spell, by the way. And it takes the damage. Any additional damage beyond 0, it's AC 10 hit points, is dealt to the original target. Yeah. And then here's the best part. Look at this. If the tree is somehow cast in soil where it could actually live, and it lives through the spell's duration, It just becomes an ordinary magical, non-magical tree. What? That's awesome. This is a first level spell? well played. Yeah, self-confessed cynic, you totally asked for this, so. Yep, it has 10 hit points. Better than Shattering Gem. That's correct. So, we haven't seen a primal temporary spell yet in the first level, but that doesn't mean they don't get one. But you were correct, because this is basically like a block. And 10 hit points is pretty good. And, scaling up to 20 and stuff like that. By the way, it doesn't look like there's any even reaction to it. It says, whenever an ally adjacent to the tree is hit by a strike. So it can't be like a magical spell, but any sort of strike, even a ranged strike would impose, and there's no limit to the number of times it can interpose its damage. So, yeah, I think this spell's pretty good. And it's magical as hell, and it's like super druidic, and it's super primal, and it's very cool. Gets a B tier. All right. Real quick. Let's take a look at Purify and Putrefy right quick. Vin says Protector Tree might be an A. Maybe. It could be. Right. Think about, I like woodworking. The value of lumber can't be understated. A high-level druid could potentially plant like 50, 40, like fully grown trees a day, every day, forever. I don't know how that works with earn an income roles in Pathfinder 2, but if I can create a whole entire forest in a year, that's pretty good. So, that's got to be a win, right? Yeah. Flame Loud says A. Anthony says that. So, all right. I like it. I think it's cool. I didn't know this spell existed, and I'm enjoying it. So we'll move up to A. All right. Here we go. Purify food and drink. It targets a cubic foot of contaminated food or water, because that's how we usually think of food, is in cubic feet. And it removes toxins and contaminations, making them safe to consume. So, very cool. So, the same level spell that it takes to detect poison, the spell uses to completely eradicate them. Yep, that comes up almost never, and never really will. If you are in a campaign where food is a problem and you're living in some barren wasteland, it doesn't make food for you, right? You still need to actually have it. Or if you're in that kind of game where the GM is really like not only talking about can you find water, but when you find water, is it potable? A reasonable concern, but this spell would make detect poison even lower grade. Yes, I agree. There you go. Why cast detect poison on something when you could just cast purify food on it, so it'd be fine. Yeah, so this spell, it's going to be one of those things where it's like, if you are in a situation where you're, I'm worried about being poisoned by my constituents, like, okay, that'll come up. So that's why it gets a D tier. It does something, and what it does. I just don't think you're ever going to really find that much of a use for it. It's not going to come up that often, and that's why it's a D. Now, putrefy food and drink, on the other hand, is, as you would expect, the complete opposite of it. And then look at this. You can heighten this spell to try to blow up people's potions or alchemical elixirs. Like, this is so silly and stupid. You will never be... PCs are never going to be going around ruining potions and elixirs, okay? Like, this this is this is just completely nonsense. Like, the only time you're ever going to use this is, I mean, like, oh, how are we going to ruin this unholy water? It's like, I don't know, smash it against the ground. Like, the ability to cause this food to rot and spoil instantly is just so useless. I mean, food does that anyways, so you're not even really doing so. Like, because if you think about it, rotten food and the ability to purify it, at least that seems kind of magical, because you're taking something that could literally not happen in our real life or in the fantasy world and then making it happen. But this is just something that happens anyways. So it's like, what does that even mean? Ugh. Thank you, Atomic Hobo, for the sticker. Yes, wrecked. Horrible spell. Just absolutely horrible. Just doesn't even need to be in the game, and it makes sense too. Look at the source on the spell. It's some random necromancy spell from some, AP, and probably fitting some one instance where it fit exactly this storyline. It's kind of crazy. All right, next spell, Shillelagh. Shillelagh. All right, there's a lot of stuff here in the chat. Yeah, sure, Swim Gripper. Yeah, that would be hell. If you're doing an adventure path, or if your adventuring career consists of protecting the king, a tier spell, but never useful for a player. Correct. Daco Popper, a spell that exists purely to damage, detect poison's rating. That's correct. That's all that is. That's the most useful thing it's ever done. Yeah. I mean, maybe you put it in your scroll, but honestly, you're not even. If you eat spoiled food, do you become sickened? No, I think you'd probably count as an affliction, and you'd have to make a fort save. Theoretically, if you could keep making the fort save, I think you just wouldn't even become sickened from ever eating all this horrible food. So, correct. D-tier spells are good in very rare or very uncommon situations, or what they do is not that great of, it just doesn't even do something. That's why you're never really going to need to take them. F-tier spells are just actively bad. That's correct. All right. Flameloud says it has to be B. Swing Gripper says, love me some worse magic weapon. Well, remember, part of the problem is primal spellcasters don't get magic weapon. And this is a primal only spell. It is only targeting a club or a staff that you are holding. And other than that, it is essentially magic weapon. It becomes a +1 striking weapon. It gets a +1 item bonus. The only additional bonus you have is against aberration, extraplanar creatures, and undead. The number of weapon dice increases to 3. So it's really funny how, like, Druid Primal list has a lot of, like, very good anti kind of extraplanar, anti-undead spell action going on between this and Magic Stone. Like, I really wouldn't have been surprised. Really surprised by that. So, I mean, this is a personal buff spell. It's cool. It's good. And, you're defending the prime material plane. I respect that. It does a lot of what Magic Weapon does, but it's obviously not as good because it only targets a club. It only targets your club that you're holding. So it is limited in that regard. But I think it is a cool spell. So I'll put it into the B tier, and increasing the dice to 3 against undead, especially at lower levels. I mean, it's gonna pack a wallop. I respect that. Anyone here from RL's Discord? I don't know who's RL. Flameloud. Who's RL? Yeah. Swing Gripper. I love that. I love that the idea of druids as being sort of guardians against the unnatural, right? Against, extraplanar incursions, against aberrations from the far realm, against undead, right? Like, I like the idea of druids and primal, less as sort of like plant hippies and more of like these, like, for the sort of the Captain Planets of the Earth. And in fact, there's always been sort of this, like, in the older editions, like, druids were always kind of seen as, like, anti-civilization. Like, they were against the humans and they were against the dwarves because they were despoiling the natural world. And certainly I think they would be still against egregious, despoilment of the natural world. And that, like, a druid would, burn down a human town because they were over hunting. Like, I've always preferred to think of them as more of being, like, actually pro-human, pro-dwarf, pro-elf, pro sort of, the core races, and being more against defenders of those people against the unnatural. And I've always liked that. So RL is rules lawyer. Okay, yeah. No, we like the rules lawyer. We watched his battle royale. It really gave us a lot of itching to do something similar in our Patreon. I don't necessarily know if it'd be on YouTube, but we kind of wanted to do something similar in our game. So, but yeah, we're big fans of his. He comments on a lot of our videos too. So, cool guy. Wild and Nature Circle are still against civilization. Yeah, it's just kind of one of those, like, I don't know. One of those difficult to be difficult things. Like, your character still has to play within a party and still is going to need magical items, and you're still going to have to buy that stuff probably from a town. So reconsider your options. All right, let's finish up here. Only got a few more. We got Summon Fae, and we already know about the summon spells. They're okay, and they're 3 action, and they summon a spell and summon a creature whose level is 2 levels below you. 2 levels below the spell that you're casting, but it is 3 actions. And Fae are even worse because Fae, a lot of the cool magical abilities and stuff like that the creatures can get don't get to be used when they have the minion trait. And Fae typically aren't really that powerful combatively. So this one goes straight to C, just like all of our other summon spells. So so Anthony, the Druid circles still have exceptions for buying things from settlements, which makes it even stupider, I think. Like, sometimes it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like everyone wants to be cool, but it's like, but you don't want to actually, like, have to, like, pay the price because then the game won't work. And so they create this really weird lore where it's like, you hate the touch of man and you hate civilization, but God help you, Amazon Prime is just so great. Like, you can't, how can you say no to that? Right. So it's like, because they understand that their game just wouldn't work then. And so it's just one of those things that just is really kind of annoying. That's exactly right. Swing Ripper. It's in the books, so the APs just don't, the game just doesn't break, So yeah, it's an okay spell, but it's not great. Summon Plant or Fungus is going to be the same thing. People who play that also play Lawful Stupid Paladins. That is also correct, yes. It would be like the exceptions for Superstition Barbarian. I hate magic and I hate everything in it, but I mean, I'll use a magic weapon. I mean, come on. I don't hate it that bad. So it's kind of silly, but I mean, summon Plant or Fungus. Nothing like the heroic ability to summon a fungi to fight for you. I will summon this yellow musk thrall and it will defeat my enemies. I will summon a veritable horde of small, cutesy, chibi leaf creatures. I hate to disappoint you all. I hate leshies. I think they're stupid. Why? Because they were in the game to be cute, and I hate cute things. So there we go. Summoning an assassin vine. All right. No. No. Leshies are dumb. Number one, I don't understand the obsession with them. Here. Okay. Leshies were put into the game because of Groot. right? It's like when they made the new Star Wars movie and they were like, oh, well, we got to have whatever the equivalent is for this generation's, of children. What's going to be their R2-D2? And they put in BB-8, which is somehow even cuter than R2-D2. And they'll sell 1 million toys or whatever like that. Leshies are Baby Groot from the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Okay. It's just a stupid, dumb, cutesy creature that you're in a game where you're like hacking people open and, yeah. Worst ancestries ever. Okay. Leshy and Poppet. Not all issues are cute. Leshies could be creepy for all we know. They're living plant creatures. They don't have the same kind of moral systems that we have. They don't have our values. They look at dead people as just compost to be sucked up into their root system. You can't trust them. All right. That's correct. Now, I'll give you a great example. Bob today was discussing his favorite songs off of various Disney soundtracks today with another father that's in our Discord. So Bob gets a pass on the cute stuff. I don't have children. I think that stuff is dumb. William Brandis. This is a counterspell on Vin's last super chat. So, Vin, Leshies and Poppets are officially not cool. I missed the boat, oh no. Oh, I failed. No, please don't do this to me. Look, I'm not saying they're wrong for you to play. Okay, I'm kind of saying they're wrong for you. No, Cobalt. Not only are kobolds not cute because they're evil, vicious creatures, like you are talking to a purist here, okay? I pretty much like human, half-elf, elf, dwarf, halfling, gnome, maybe, half-orc, full stop. That's it. Like anything outside of that, I just can't get behind. I'm sorry. Like if that character wasn't represented in the Fellowship of the Ring party, I can't abide by it. I'm sorry. It's just not. It's not something I can do. I can't exist in a world where we have, like, I'm already stressed with people dual wielding yo-yos as weapons. Like the fact that you're like an animated doll that is dual wielding these. And here's the thing, like, okay, fine, you want to be these things, but what's worse is they've made the game now where these races, these ancestries, these backgrounds have absolutely none of the massive punishing disadvantages that they would absolutely have. So they make them playable because that's the whole point of the game. And so suddenly you're like, okay, so my 6'10", 350-pound half-orc has the same strength score as the Leshy fighter. And I just want to go home. All right. Me. I don't want to play as a Chucky doll. I don't want to play as a Chucky doll. Oh, I'm getting super chatted by Ben. No. Oh. I don't know. I missed that boat. I don't know what happened. You know what it was? I spent too much time playing cool games. And I didn't watch any anime. And I didn't have children. So I missed any desire for things to be cutesy and cute. All right, we're so close. We're so close, everyone. Let's just finish up strong. This could be a whole live stream. I'm sorry. I don't like any of these ancestries. I just don't like them. And forget about robot androids from space and any of that stuff. That's also nonsense. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate you. I mean, I love my dogs. They're cute. But would I want to play my dog in an RPG? No. No joking. I want to play a poppet who summoned a psychopomp to help her on her quest to find out if she has a soul. Like, this sounds like the plot to Toy Story. This sounds like the plot to a Disney film. Like that, which is fine, which is great, but it's not. But this character shouldn't be critiquing people with a pick in their face, right? With the fatal trait. It doesn't work together. Bringing in more viewers, alienating people. Who knows? Who's to say? Yeah, no, it is. The pure stuff is definitely. Obviously, I'm sure most people, but it is. Yeah, that is very true. Swing Ripper, although most people tend to pretty much ignore those. But Bob doesn't get to play Frozen Flame apparently because if he's going to not be a dwarf, he's going to be a Leshy. So, actually, no, I'll let him be a Leshy. I've been told by the greater community of role players that. Thank you, Damien. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I hate poppets too, and with good reason. Very much. Yeah. So, Bob, I've been told by the greater role-playing community that games are a lot better when the DM takes an active hand in deciding what happens. And so I will let you be your Leshy, and I will figure out all the worst possible ways to bring death to your silly little plant creature. But I'll do it for the story, and that'll make it okay. Infinite. I like, honestly, like, no, like, it's just not something that I'm not actually sure which one I like least. I don't know if it's the poppet or the Leshy. Just stop antagonizing me. It's fine. Actually, I like lattes. Okay. I like a little cream. I like a little milk. I like a little sugar or equal in my coffee. Okay. I don't like it. It's not that I don't have feelings. I don't play role-playing games to be cutesy. That's all. I don't view D&D adventures like, my shelf over here is full of, Wheel of Time and Conan the Cimmerian, like these are not, oh God. See, this is why capitalism is such a flawed concept. Because I got bills. That is true. Well, see, this is problematic because that's very tempting. And Bob, I'll tell you this. If Bob's playing a Leshy in Frozen Flame, there will be no Derek hero point rules, okay? We're going to go back to the old ways, and we're going to see how well the Knights of Last Call do in their adventuring then, okay? I personally love I just made a human fighter. He died at level 2, but I love the human fighter as well, and he used a bastard sword because that's what people should do. In fact, if you look here behind me, you'll see I have like a million RPG books, and they all have really great covers with really great art. And I can promise you that if I were to pull off every single book from that shelf, not a single one of them is going to have a mighty thewed barbarian or a cunning warrior wielding a yo-yo. Okay, and there's a reason for that. It's because yo-yos aren't weapons, and they're also dumb, and they don't belong in our game. All right. Down with the doll people. Correct. My gut instinct is to not like goblins, but I have come around somewhat on them because it's fun to have that kind of shifty core class in core race ancestry in the game. So swords are cool and they are epic. Yes, this is now the cute PC race. That's right. Okay. Yeah, that's exactly what I had. A buckler. I was focused on combat grab and staggering strike, and I had a buckler and I had bastard sword. And that's exactly what I had, Flame Loud, and it was awesome. But then we fought 20 Goblin Warriors, which was a 200 XP fight, and we all died. Oops. But goblins do not get a pass? Oh, see, you're just so inconsistent. All right. Oh, there's no cracks, okay? Yeah, well, when we first played Rise of the Rune Lord, Bob's brother Danny, who was originally with us in the group, Danny, of course, had to leave because of his obligations to the army, and he was playing remotely while he was deployed. He was a goblin because he thought, hey, this is going to be funny. I want to be a goblin and, stir up shit. And that's really the problem I have with goblins, is most people are goblins because they basically just want an excuse to be a conniving little shit. No, bucklers do not. That's exactly what they do. They do not violate the free hand rule. That's why they're cool. All right. Where we got Swamp Call. Does it summon Swamp Thing? Because that would be sweet. Swamp Call. Uh-oh, it's from Strength of Thousands. All right, we got a primal spell only. 30-foot range, so it's kind of danger close, but it's a 10-foot burst. That's a pretty good area. Not 20-foot burst like Fireball, but 20-foot burst is good. For 1 minute, you call upon the spirits of the soil to twist and turn. The terrain becomes difficult, and anybody in there has to make a reflex save. If they fail, they sink into the mud and take a -10 flat speed and become flat-footed. They last until the creature leaves the area or until the end of its next turn. And in its critical fail, they get -15 penalties to their feed. And the whole area becomes difficult terrain. Wow. What a... Yes. That is... I did too, believe it or not. Yes, totally forgot that this stream was about spells. That kind of checks out, actually, Damien. The dwarves wear suits. That's not what dwarves do. Okay, they live in the mountains. Yes, Vin. We are trying to finish it up. We're trying to wrap it up here. We're not that far over time. This is Flameloud says A, and I tend to believe this is a great spell. This sounds like a really powerful spell. Even if they succeed, that's fine. It's still all difficult terrain for a minute, so that is going to create a real problem for them. But if they fail, not only are they flat-footed, which is an AoE flat footing, which is great, but a -10 to yeah. Anthony got it right. A -10 to speed with difficult terrain basically is going to potentially eat up an entire creature's turn. It might not even be able to clear it. You could potentially get a couple of turns. A couple of actions out of an enemy, especially like you said, Swing Gripper, if you're in some sort of tightly controlled area. And I think that's really, really powerful. So I really think this spell is great. And I should point out that while it's not it's not super appealing, it does heighten, which a lot of these spells don't, but 60-foot range and a 20-foot burst. I think the only thing that really keeps the spell from being like extreme amazing is that 30-foot range. Boy, that is really short. Like if you could throw this at a distance, that would be really, really, really powerful. If it didn't have a 30-foot range, this might be S tier. Yeah. You're saying, you're saying, never mind S. I just think that range is really short. It doesn't have in cap, and it does compete with Grease, and Grease is A. So I like A. Yeah, I like that A. I think it's A. And I think there's a lot of situations where you could be really, really happy with this spell. Yeah, reach spell with this, huge benefit. Getting the difference between 30 feet and 60 feet is pretty significant. So I'm going to like it. Plus, it's a primal only spell. So again, we're judging this on the merits of, hey, if I'm casting this spell, well, no one else is going to have a spell like this. And it feels very flavorful, right? Like this is a very cool druidic thing to do. Like you're calling upon the spirits of the earth and the soil. You're sort of earth bending the ground into sort of this tangled, soggy, shifting mass. I think that's really cool just from a flavor description, kind of like gravitational pull from our arcane list. Yeah, so A tier. I agree. I like it. Damien says Goblin equal Kender. Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. I didn't make the Kender reference because how many people even know anything about Dragonlance or Kender anymore? Yeah, Druids got all the... Well, maybe because they realized the Druids didn't have a lot otherwise, and the Wizards had too many. Yeah, Little Carp, I agree. Yeah, there are certain spells in the game where you're just like, wow, okay, yeah, Reach is going to be the difference between this spell being okay and this spell being really, really good. You know, and to the point where I was saying, if this spell was 60 foot, I would probably say it would be an S tier. So by definition, if you have Reach feat, you're basically turning this spell into an S tier control spell. And that's really great. Kender. Kender are from Dragonlance. And let's take a look here. And Kender were like halflings. This is Tasselhoff Burfoot, who is the kind of the prototypical Kender, and they are basically halflings, but they are really curious and cutesy and irresponsible, and they like to borrow everything, which means steal it. And they're like, oh, tee-hee-hee-hee, I didn't mean to steal it. I was just borrowing it because I'm just so curious, and I just, they're kind of annoying. Tasselhoff is offended to be, yeah, sure. Yes. They're Dragonlance halflings, but with this extra annoyance of being like, they're perfect for the character who wants to like steal everything from everybody and then be like, oh, but I'm just a Kender. It's just in my nature to be inquisitive and be curious and mess with shit and see what happens. Anthony, yeah, I'm actually getting really impressed with the primal list here. We can cover that here in a few seconds. We're going to finish this up. They're not magical at all. They are basically just really, really childlike, even as adults, is how I would describe it. They don't like understand, they're just kind of like big dogs. They don't understand personal property. Yes, that's exactly right. The way that a lot of the people in Critical Role play is a lot like how a Kender would play. Just kind of like everything's a joke. It's kind of funny. Let's mess with something, and just be kind of, so. Kender are immune to fear. That's correct. We played a lot of Dragonlance in the late 90s. We played the 5th Age of Dragonlance, which is somewhat unpopular, but we liked it a lot. All right, last two. Verdant Sprout and Venomous Lure. Oh, Verminous Lure. Okay, let's knock it out. We got it. Let's do it. All right, Verdant Sprout. It's from Extinction Curse. It's primal only. 3 actions, range 30 feet. Yikes. This is a rough way to start. You imbue a plant seed with primal energy and throw it, and it becomes a plant. And after 10 minutes of growing, it's enough to provide cover, and its space is difficult terrain. And the plant is laden with nutritious nuts and fruits to feed one creature for 1 day. It has 10 hardness, 10 AC, 5 hardness, and 20 hit points. It looks like it's otherwise an ordinary tree. I don't know how to feel about this spell. I mean, it's cool. Feed somebody. It's a druid. They're growing trees. I don't know how useful that is. 1 person for 1 food for a day. I'm assuming the tree just lasts. Obviously, it grows in 10 minutes. Completely unusable in combat. So again, this spell does do something. So it's not an F. Okay? And what it's doing is... So it's not an F because it does do something, and it's cool, and it's magical, and it's a real tree, and you could climb it, and you could do something. And Flame Loud got it exactly right. It is basically the definition of a D spell. It works. It's just that what it does, it doesn't really come up that useful. It doesn't come up that often. Yep, I like D tier as well. Yes, a spell that combines a bunch of better spells into one single meh tree. Yeah, with a wand. Again, assuming these spells last all day or forever, a druid high level could just take infinite of these. In fact, with heightening, right? Like a druid, let's see, if you took let's say you're a level 5 druid, so you have three level 1s, 3 level 2s, 2 level 3s. You could take all of them, so you would get 6, and then you would get 6 more, and then you would get 3. You could make like 15 trees a day. You could repopulate an entire forest in like a year. So it is a worse good berry. So hence its location. Yeah, but it's not used for combat though, right? It says it takes 10 minutes to grow. So, it's not really practical in that respect. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a cool magical effect. It does. I'm not giving it an F tier, but it gets a D tier because most of the time when you're playing Pathfinder 2, this spell is not going to be something that you're going to really need. And even then, when you do have it, it's more for flavor and for fun. And I respect those spells and take it if you want to, but it's not that great. All right, which brings us to our last spell, Verminous Lure, also from Strength of Thousands. Well, we're starting off here with a olfactory spell. You don't get too many of those. Primal, only 2 actions, 1 creature object, 30 foot, 10 minutes. Okay, you emit a musk, which is captivating to only certain animals. Tiny animals and animal swarms of any... Wow. All right, so tiny animals or animal swarms must make a will save. And on a failure, non-hostile animals or animal swarms try to touch the target. If hostile, such creatures choose to attack the target instead of other foes. So basically, if you cast this on somebody, tiny animals, so like mice and chipmunks and squirrels, will try to cuddle the target. And if they're hostile, like I'm assuming bugs, they will try to attack the target preferentially. But by the way, these are mindless vermin. They will only do so if they do not have to spend additional actions or exposing themselves to additional danger. So, like the concept of, oh, hey, I'm going to cast Verminous Lure on myself, and I'm going to lead these swarms through, and I'm going to jump over the fire pit, and then they're going to be following. That doesn't even work. That doesn't even work against mindless creatures. So that's an F.
A musty sound tipped $10.
Oh, that's nice. Maybe I should put a character limit in there. Thank you for that. Can I get F's in the chat for the stream? Thanks. There we go. That one is going to be a hard F because you don't know that it was him. Thank you for the Fs. Yes, F's in the chat. F's in the chat. Everybody dropping the F in the chat. There might be a cancel button, but I'd have to go over to my stream elements, and I figured it would end eventually. Why even have this spell in the book? And Robert finishes us up with the question that we should just all be asking all the time, which is, why are some of these spells even in the book? We got $10 for that one, Flame Loud. So I'll take a minute of complete utter annoyance for $10. I mean, it's fine. So here we have it. We've got the Primal level 1 list. And it's a lot more square shaped, right? If you remember, our Arcane list had a lot more C's, but then it had fewer B's and fewer A's. So I would say that this has filled in the gap a little bit. This has less mid-range spells. It actually has more better spells, but it also has more worse spells. So, I think that is something that's pretty cool. I think that the primal spell list is actually pretty good. I'll also say this, this spell would be better if conjured animals instead of needing to be around. Right? It's not even scroll worthy because this spell literally, if there aren't swarms of insects around like this spell does nothing. So it's literally useless. And then if there are insect swarms and you're like, oh, I'll get them to like follow me, they won't do it because they will only choose to attack you if they were able to do so without spending additional.
$10. My bad.
Nice. Thank you. You don't have to apologize. Yeah, no, there are no non-lethal spells in the primal, and that makes sense, right? Because they don't have access to the mind category, right? They only have access to matter and to life, and so you definitely get a lot less of like the weird utility spells of Arcane, but you get a lot of the blasting power. You get access to heal, which is saying something, but it really doesn't have a lot of great buff spells either. You have Magic Fang, and that's about it. We thought Nettle Skin was okay. Magic Stone and Shillelagh are just kind of wonkier versions of Magic Weapon, and Shillelagh and Magic Stone and Magic Fang all drop off once you're past like 4th or 5th level. So no mind or spirit makes sense that they can't do non-lethal. Exactly. And that's why you're going to see a lot of non-lethal effects in Arcane and Divine, and probably a lot in Occult as well. Yes, Druids have to take Meta Magic class feats just to be able to non-lethal. So Arcane, probably still better than Primal, which is probably better than Occult, which is probably a lot better than Divine. That is probably a safe assumption. We'll see as we kind of go through this. In fact, once we finished up all of the first 4 tiers, we'll sort of give level 1 Arcane, level 1 Primal, level 1 Occult, level 1 Divine a sort of holistic tiering so we can really kind of figure this out. It's basically what you expect a Bind Swarm to be, but it's worse than what you would want a Bind Swarm to be. Exactly. Like, it'd be cool if it allowed you to cast like Charm, but on mindless creatures, like a Charm Vermin, a Charm Swarm. That would be pretty cool, but it doesn't do that. It's because it's not really the spell list of the Fae. It's the spell list of the Druid, and the Druid really deal with the natural order. So the Fae is kind of more of a first world type thing. So it's actually kind of different from that. You don't have to kill them. Stabilize them once they're dying. I would consider playing a Primal Sorcerer after this, and that's exactly what Burl is. And he is a Primal Sorcerer, and he really focuses mostly on the elemental type spells, and gets some of his spontaneous abilities in his elemental bloodlines, so he gets a lot of bonus damage, making him a really strong kind of blaster. So, Divine needs a lot of help since it does nothing better than this. Divine's rough. Divine is absolutely rough. Okay, Quinn says, in the Dark Eye, which is a German pen and paper RPG, weaker spells cost less XP than stronger ones. You always have a few spare XP to buy cheap situational D-tier spells. No daily spell limit either, but mana instead. What do you think about that? Well, I mean, at that point, you're right. You're changing the whole nature of the game. But I do agree that we've come a long way since 1974. I mean, the spell slot system is what Gary Gygax used in original Dungeons & Dragons 48 years ago. And we have learned a lot about game design. We've learned a lot about how video games and how role-playing games and how board games not only could be designed better, but we've just learned about the psychology of playing games. We've learned about the psychology of storytelling. And then the medium of role-playing games has changed as well. Most people are no longer playing the type of games that they were playing back in 1974. And so I do think that a lot of things should change in that regard. And I don't know if you were here from our Arcane list, but we were talking about how the skills like Arcane and Occultism and Religion and Nature, a lot of what these spells are doing should probably be skill checks and should rely on you essentially having infinite access to these sort of magical effects that fall within your wheelhouse, as long as it's not something that mechanically is going to need a restriction or a resource. Oh, well, the Dark Eyes from 1984. Well, even then, that's still 10 years after because even by the 80s, you had a lot of games that were coming out, like GURPS and Basic Fantasy Roleplay and Hero and, what else? Apparently the Dark Eye. And they were doing things differently than Dungeons & Dragons because they said, hey, we've been playing this game for 10 years and we think we can do something that's better and more engaging. And, the game started to shift. Obviously, second edition was just a copy of first edition. Third edition changed things a lot. Fourth edition changed things a ton. But then they went like 2.5 editions back with fifth edition. But then it was somehow the most popular game of all time for role-playing games. So it really kind of makes me scratch my head sometimes. I like the idea of a point system to buy your spells as well, but it gets down to how much time and effort do you really want to put into casting these spells. So, it's already a lot of work to be a spellcaster. You already have, once you get to 10th level or 15th level, it's like you have dozens and dozens of spells to prepare. One of the advantages of being a sorcerer, at least, you don't have to sit there and worry about what spells you need to take for the day because it's just locked in. All right. Well, that, it sounds like a pain to write and prep, and I agree with that. I would be remiss if I said, hey, if you haven't checked out our Patreon, now would be a good time to. We are doing these conversations all day, every day on our Patreon. We have a couple different tiers to support us at. The lowest level tier won't get you access to any of the bonus content, but it will get you access to our Discord. And we charge a couple bucks for that just because we find that it keeps some of the trolls out, and we haven't had any real problems with community like a lot of open Discords have. So, really appreciate you. But of course, if you don't join our Patreon, hey, make sure you like this video. YouTube does a lot better for us. If people are liking these videos, subscribe if you haven't done so, because we're going to keep trying to do some of these. I promised somebody when we started this, they said, don't break my heart. A lot of people try to do these things and then they give up because it takes a long time. And they were right. It is going to take a long time. It took us 3 sessions just to do the first Arcane list, 1 session to do Primal. It'll probably take us like 1 session to do Occult and 1 session to do Divine. So we're probably looking at something like 6 sessions just to get through the level 1 spells. Thankfully, there are less and less spells as we go on throughout the game. So I think my guess is it'll probably take us somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 of these to maybe get through all of them. So that's 4 down, 26 to go. So, Blueberry, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. I'm sure I'm not reading the Discord right now, but I'm sure there's already an argument going on in there. I have been railing against Poppets for a very, very long time. The simplicity of slots is very nice. It ties back to the Vancian approach, which some people really dig for its flavor and for the strategy of having to plan ahead. Thank you very much, Quins, for your contributions. Appreciate you. Yeah. I mean, if all you're going to do is come in there and talk about how much you love Leshies and Poppets, maybe it is better that you stay away. Oh my gosh. Nope. Yeah. Krampus and the Doll Knights. That's amazing. Do we have a podcast? We do have a podcast. If you take a look for Knights of Last Call on Spotify, Apple, Google Play Podcast, Anchor, we have a couple episodes up there. We have a podcast that's exclusively audio podcast, and we've been trying to put some of our old content up there. So for people who want to listen, especially some of our longer videos or series that tend to go over 20, 30 minutes, those can be sometimes a bear to listen to on YouTube. So it's nice to have them in an audio only format. So check that out if you haven't done so. Also a good idea. Awesome. Look at the people are plugging it for me. Thank you so much, everybody. When is the next stream? Well, let's see. It's Wednesday. Boy. Friday, I'm hoping to get back to playing some RPGs. I took the last 2 weeks off because it was New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve. I'm probably usually not doing anything on the weekends, but streams can be kind of wonky on the weekends. A lot of people don't have time for it, but I might throw a stream out there for Saturday or Sunday, just because I'm probably not going to be doing anything. So we'll try to cover a cult. But of course, if you miss it, these are all going video on demand. It's going to be up on our YouTube channel, so you can check it out there. Blueberry, kind of a long post here, but I wouldn't mind if they went full focus spell approach with spells in Pathfinder 3. I agree. I liked focus spells. I wish they would have done more of them, and I feel like it's an underutilized resource. Atomic Obo asks, who is Lance Q? It should be obvious. Apparently he's Batman. Oh, all right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Again, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, check out some of our other videos, maybe take a look at our Patreon, and if not, join us for our next live stream. We're going to start doing our AP live. That's going to be a disaster, so you're going to want to join that. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. We're still kicking around the tires on this system, trying to make it through this Rise of the Rune Lord AP without anybody getting completely TPK'd. They've gotten close a couple times. Maybe kicking off a Frozen Flame one here in the near future. So thanks everybody for joining. And I just want to say appreciate my patrons, everybody who tipped, everybody who super chatted. Obviously, you're the grease that is not flammable that keeps this channel running, and myself and the Knights are super, super, super appreciative of it. And I just want to say thank you very much. So, peace, everybody.